Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. And as you can see, I have a special guest with me today, Renee Gabriel, who's an expert in money and how to make more money and keep your money. And we're going to talk to Gabriel about that today and how to make so much money that you could give a lot of it away, which is what Renee does with, I guess, wealthy people or people that aspire to become wealthy. So welcome, Renee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. And yes, I donate 100% of the profits from the work I do teaching other people how to handle money powerfully so they can become philanthropic. And, I figure it's important to lead by example.
For sure it is. Let me just read your bio that you sent me. So Renee Gabriel is the president of the Financial Coach. After 2 divorces and a business failure, Renee went from broke at age 50 to multimillionaire after learning the 3 secrets of the wealthy, despite failing high school math. I know I wasn't too good at math either. Renee is a TEDx speaker, and he now, as he just mentioned, donates 100% of the profits from his books and online programs to rescue dogs and soldiers. His award-winning best-selling book, Wealth on Any Income, has been translated into 8 languages. So that's quite a feat that you've accomplished in your life, to go from being broke at age 50 to become a multimillionaire, and just donating your income from the work you do. So congratulations on that. That's a great feat. How does it feel to have gone from where you were to where you are today? Let's hear about how it feels.
Well, first thing I want to do is make a small correction. It's not
Sure.
the income that's donated, it's the profits.
Oh, the profits. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the first things we need to talk about regarding money, is the difference between income and profits.
Right.
But how does it feel? I feel incredibly blessed. I've got my health, I've got wonderful relationships, and I've got prosperity to the extent that I don't have to work for a living. So if I'm going to do it, it has to have some purpose.
Okay. So who do you typically work with in terms of being a financial coach and trainer to educate people? Who comes to you for help and to hire you as their financial coach?
Primarily entrepreneurs, people who have control over their income. And that can also include professionals like doctors, even CPAs, dentists, or coaches, authors, podcasters, other corporate trainers. So it's primarily the people who generate their own income and have control over it.
Okay. And so they come to you for advice, for training, coaching. Why do they come to you? What are they experiencing to drive them to reach out to you? What's going on?
A lot of them have, well, I'd say there's 2 groups. Group 1 are the people who don't feel they're generating the level of income that they are capable of, and they don't know what to do. So some of it has to do with business growth, marketing, how to have conversations with prospective clients so that they end up being hired. So that's one group. The second group are the people who are earning an excellent living. They're making multiple 6 figures, and at the same time, they look around and say, where's it going? I don't seem to have anything to show for it. I could be working like this until the day I die because I'll have no other choice. And so I would say it's those 2 groups, those who feel like they're treading water, and those who feel they're doing a great income and they don't have anything to show for it.
Okay. And so how do you help them? What is your process? Or does it vary depending on the person and their objective? But you talked about three-step
Yeah.
approach, I believe.
Yeah, it varies a little bit. The 3 steps are crucial because whoever I'm talking to, we're talking about creating wealth, and they have the desire to be philanthropic. And it doesn't matter if they're earning too little income or a lot of income. The point is, it's not working for them. And so, yeah, the approaches are still very similar. And what I've noticed is that the bulk of the population, and I'm only talking about 9 out of 10 people, have been taught nothing about how to handle money on a foundational level. They don't know how to work a cash flow form. They don't know what to look for on their balance sheet. They have no idea how to effectively track their income and expenses so that they can make intelligent decisions. And, I've really discovered over these 50 years that parents can't teach what they don't know, and the school system can't teach what the teachers have not been taught. And as an example, you're in Canada. I don't know what education's required there, but down here in the US with 50 states, only recently have 11 states required some sort of financial education prior to graduating high school. That means 39 states have nothing yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like doctors that don't get educated about bedside manners or about nutrition, although that's shifting. But yeah, I used to do this team training program in companies. And one of the components I used to include was a financial, like what is a P&L statement? Because I found that a lot of people worked in these companies and didn't understand what it took to make a profit. And, just because they saw all the business that the company was doing, they thought that the owners or, the shareholders were filthy rich and, they could do whatever they wanted because there was so much money. And yet when we went through a little bit of education, they saw how maybe difficult it is to actually earn a profit after you account for all the expenses and so on and so forth. So I realized then that most people didn't have any financial training in terms of what it takes to run a business, and even on like what you're saying on the personal level. What is, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's actually worse than that because I'm certified as a financial planner, and there was no coursework that taught the basics of how to handle money. There was nothing about how to do an income and expense report as a part of becoming a certified financial planner. So people who would turn to a certified financial planner for that help might not get it because that person hasn't been trained either. And I've interviewed hundreds of CPAs. I used to own a pension administration company, and all our referrals came from certified public accountants. I'd ask them, tell me in your coursework where you were taught the foundations of handling money, how to do an income and expense report, rather to teach that to your clients. Not one of them said they were given any education so they could teach their clients what they needed to know. They may have learned it on their own, trial and error, their own research, but it's not a part of the coursework for CPAs either.
So, the other day I was watching YouTube, and there was a short kind of documentary report by, I think it was CNBC, about the debt in North America or America. And they said the debt, personal debt was at $16.5 trillion. And so, they were talking about credit card debt and all this, which of course just strangles you with the interest. So how does somebody, whether a business owner or anybody listening to this who has debt or wants to go from just struggling financially to becoming wealthy and being able to become a philanthropist. I mean, I personally also dream about that, believe it or not, of becoming successful enough where I could give to my favorite charity substantial amounts every month. Yet I still haven't gotten to that point where I consider myself successful in that regard. So how do you bring people from struggling financially, whether they're in debt or just struggling, to where they can become wealthy and consider becoming a philanthropist?
Well, there's two significant areas that I have to concentrate on. And the first is the attitude, and it's the mindset. Unfortunately, people who listen to my TED Talk will hear me talk about this, and it's that we have been programmed without our being conscious to it, to believe it's better to be poor than it is to be wealthy. I mean, if you look at scripture, if you look at fairy tales, if you look at Hollywood movies, the poor people are often 99% of the time the heroes, and the wealthy people are awful human beings. And it's this subtle unconscious programming that has us believe that it's not good to be wealthy. People won't like us. We'll turn into something awful. And I think Warren Buffett had the best quote I've ever seen in this area. He said, "Of the billionaires I have known, money just brings out the basic traits in them. If they were jerks before they were wealthy, they were just jerks with $1 billion." And the thing is, people who are good to begin with, when they become wealthy, they'll still be good. It doesn't transform anyone. It only brings out who they are. And so that's the first area that I have to concentrate on, is the mindset. As an example, you were talking about being strangled with debt. Too many people believe, and they're told by various financial gurus or their CPA, they need to focus on paying off debt before they begin investing. And that's horrible advice, because I've seen this roller coaster effect where people pay off the debt, they get their credit cards down, or they pay off their auto loan, and something goes wrong and they have to borrow money. And this cycle continues over and over and over again. And they end up at age 65 or 70. And yeah, fine, they have no debt. Stephen, let me put you on the spot here. Let me ask you a question. If you had absolutely no debt, no car loans, no mortgages, no credit card debt, no personal loans, if you had absolutely no debt, I'm not talking about anything else, just no debt, would you be able to stop working for a living?
Yes.
Okay, explain how. How are you going to pay for utilities? How are you going to buy groceries? Just because you have no debt.
I have savings that I could, retirement savings that I could.
I didn't say you had that.
Along with my.
I didn't say you had that.
Pardon?
I didn't say you had savings. I said you only have no debt.
Well, if I didn't have savings, I would have to continue to work.
Exactly. And that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
And people think if they just get rid of debt, it'll create financial freedom. And it doesn't. It's the savings that you're talking about. It's the investments that are generating an income, which would allow you to stop working. Otherwise, if you just have no debt, you've got to keep working if you want to keep the lights on and buy food.
Right.
And so when people are given the advice, get rid of the debt first.
Okay.
It's horrible advice, because the investments, as they grow, can make both the payments on the interest as well as the principal payments on your debt and get rid of it. But if you don't start the investments, it'll never show up.
So what you're saying is to build a habit of investing, even if you do have debt presently.
Yeah.
So that
absolutely correct.
Once you do manage to get rid of the debt, that habit, that mindset is in place, that you keep that investment going.
Exactly. And that's what I did. That's what turned around for me after age 50. Okay. I had credit card debt. I made the minimum payments, but I was saving money. I was paying myself first. It's a 5,000-year-old concept. I had about $18,000 with my wife and a realtor. I started investing in real estate. We bought a 3-unit property. It grew in value by $500,000. Wow. There's no way my 18,000 would have turned into $500,000 if I didn't start the investing. And by the time I'm 58, the income from our investments was able to pay all the credit card debt and whatever I would charge on a month-to-month basis.
So number one is to help people change their attitude towards money and investing and debt. The second
Correct.
thing is start investing.
Providing, well, the second thing, yes, is investing is also a part of it, of the mindset. But the second thing is the tips and techniques on how to handle money powerfully, how to determine the level of pleasure you get where you spend your money. Like, would you rather be buying groceries? Would you rather be eating at a restaurant? Do you want to be driving an expensive car so that you look flashy to other people? Or do you want to drive a car that works for you? As a matter of fact, I use a car as little as possible. I prefer to be on a motorcycle. It's determining the level of pleasure based on where you're spending your money. And that requires the tips and techniques on how you determine that.
Well, what if somebody derives a lot of pleasure from driving and being seen in a fancy car, but really can't afford it? How do you deal with a situation like that?
It's trading the alternatives. In other words, as long as that's what you want and you'll have nothing more than that for the rest of your life, fine. But it needs to be a conscious choice. So, part of the mindset is creating the consciousness. As an example, I had an attorney many years ago where he was unable to pay his income taxes without borrowing against the equity in his house. And his wife was fed up with that. They brought me in and I started asking, where's the money going? And he said, well, we like eating out. I probably spend $600 a month. Now, this is, probably 25 years ago when spending $600 a month was spending a lot. And I had him track it. This is what I'm talking about, the consciousness. I have a tool where he could track his money. It only took 5 to 10 seconds wherever he spent it, even if it was a quarter in a parking meter. And we got together about 6 weeks later to look at where the money was really going. He wasn't spending $600 a month eating out. It was $1,600 a month.
So he wasn't even aware
$1,000
of what
a month.
He was actually spending. Yeah,
exactly. That $1,000 a month for 12 months is $12,000, and that's what he was short to cover his income taxes. He literally ate what he needed.
It sounds like the formula that I've often talked about. In order to create change in your life, you first have to create awareness. So you can be clear and have a choice of what you're going to do. And that can result in change. So you bring that, help them be aware through actually looking at tracking where they're spending and where the money's going so they can make better choices. And in this case, he didn't even realize he was spending more than double what he thought he was spending. That's very
exactly. And it doesn't matter who you are. I'll give you an example. You've heard of, John D Rockefeller.
Yes.
Okay. At the time when he had Standard Oil, he was one of the wealthiest men in the world. When he was 11 years of age, I saw a documentary that showed the journal that he kept at age 11 of every penny that came into his hands and where he spent it. And that's a habit he continued his whole life. Now, if it works for the wealthiest man on the planet and other wealthy people as well, don't you think it would be good for you and I?
Yeah, and some people, though, have real difficulty doing that or don't want to do that. How do you deal with the resistance to, I've often, like even in leadership, I find that a lot of leaders always say, I don't have time to do certain things that'll make them a better leader or improve their leadership and improve the results they get from people. And so I try and get them to track where they're spending their time so they could see what it is they want to give up. And just doing that exercise, often leaders, they just don't want to do it. They just love to jump around from one thing to the other. Maybe the pain point isn't big enough. So how do you get people that really resist doing that? How is it, do they have to get to a certain place where they're actually so fed up they're willing to do that?
Yes and no. Generally, I don't have the resistance because the people are coming to me because they're already fed up.
Right.
And when you're talking about handling time, I do a time study myself. I do one every year. I'm currently doing one to see how much time I'm actually spending managing the apartment buildings that we have. And I have determined for the level of income that I receive, I'm spending on average about an hour and a half a week for the tens of thousands of dollars per month I'm earning. But I still wanted to know, how much time am I spending? And without creating the consciousness that you and I have spoken about, without creating the awareness, there's no ability to make a change. You need to know what's going on. You need to know where the money's coming from and where you're spending it if you're going to make any transformational changes. Same thing with the time. You're absolutely right, Stephen.
So I heard you talk about two things. One is the attitude and the awareness. The second thing is knowledge, a specific knowledge of where money's being sent. And what's the third thing?
Well, if I talk about the three secrets of the wealthy, right. The first is attitude. The second is the forms. That's the tips and techniques, how you actually use the forms to create the awareness and the change in attitude. Okay. And the third are the investments, because wealthy people are not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. We have a decent sized stock portfolio, but the bulk of our wealth comes from real estate. And people could have triple net leases. They could do equipment leasing. They could have their own business. But the point is, wealthy people are in control of their money employees can do it as well on the outside of their employment. But like I said, primarily my clients are people who have control over their income.
Would it be a good idea for business owners to educate their employees on these matters that you're talking about? And how would that benefit them and their company?
It absolutely is an advantage for owners to educate their employees on how to handle money, because in too many companies, the employees don't know how to live on the paychecks that they get. They come to the employer and ask for paycheck advances. They can't contribute to the 401k or whatever retirement plan they might have, whether it's the US, Canada, or anywhere else in the world. And providing this financial education allows for employees to be happy with where they're working. They don't get calls from creditors because they're falling behind somewhere. They're not asking for pay advances because they're now educated on how to handle it effectively. So it works beautifully for the employer because he has happy employees who are happy with the level of income they're earning because now they know how to handle it effectively.
Okay. What is one valuable free resource that you can direct people to that will further help them with growing their wealth?
Well, we kind of alluded to it. There's a TED Talk that I have on my website.
Right.
If they go to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx, they'll get two things. One, they'll have the opportunity to listen to my TED Talk and hear how we've been programmed to believe it's better to be poor. That's number one. And what the cure is. And the cure is a 9-step roadmap to complete financial choice and philanthropy that they can download. And it comes with a 27-page explanation of each of those 27-page explanation covering all 9 of those steps. And they'll get a weekly email with additional tips and techniques and inspiration on how to handle their money powerfully.
Well,
So
that's
it's wealth on any
sounds like a
income.
really valuable piece of information or wealth of knowledge that is free. You said people can, I know the TED Talk is free. I was watching that before.
Yes.
But I wasn't aware of the other. So that's a downloadable ebook or? And it's free.
Yeah, it's a downloadable document, and that's also free. It's the 9-step roadmap to complete financial choice and philanthropy.
Okay, so I'll put a link to that in the description of this video or podcast. What's the one question that I should have asked you that would give great value to our audience?
The great question and the answer. The question is, when is it too late to create financial freedom? And the answer is very long and complicated. It's the word never.
So even if somebody's in their 70s, they could still create financial freedom for themselves?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of my closest friends got divorced at age 69.
Yeah.
Was $250,000 in debt after the divorce. And a few years later, he's worth about $2 million from, our working together. Like I said, it's a friend of mine.
That's
so yeah, it's never too late. Doesn't matter
how many years working together?
It took him about 4.5 years to go from $250,000 in debt to a $2 million net worth.
Well, that's interesting. That's more than interesting and very enticing. So anybody that wants to become wealthy, it's obviously possible at any age. And Renee can show you how. I guess start by checking out his TEDx talk and downloading his free ebook. Renee, I want to thank you for being here today and for providing this insight. I know a lot of people think that, their debt or their financial problems is going to carry forward with them for the rest of their lives. But after listening to you, I see that doesn't have to be the reality, that a shift can be made by following the right formula, which you seem to have. So thank you again for being here and providing this information. Again, the links to Renee and his resources will be in the description of this video and podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so now so you get news of new videos and new interviews. There's a playlist on expert guest interviews. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon.